mute so that you're not interrupted as you're talking.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Mike. When you first open up Landscape, you're gonna see the Landscape dashboard. The dashboard is totally customizable, and you just log into it from any web browser, and it's going to bring up your personal dashboard view. And the dashboard is made up of different widgets that can really display whatever information you want them to display. So I have sort of changed my dashboard to be stewardship focused. I've got a lot of maps that show me where different issues are. This map shows me where open requests and approvals are. And then I have a map that shows me where I have left to monitor. And I can zoom into these maps. They're fully interactive, and they're working with the data that is in our account. So all they're doing is aggregating data from our account and presenting them to me in a way that I want to see them. If I was in land protection, on the land protection side of things, I might have a totally different dashboard that was more focused on rates of protection, active projects, and stuff like that. But I like to be able to keep track of the monitoring season and outstanding issues. Again, you can move these widgets around, you can make them bigger or smaller, and you can make them show whatever you want. Down here I have monitoring count and hours that I've monitored this year, if I want to keep track of that. And then there's this thing called tasks that I can also use to keep track of outstanding to-do items. You can use these dashboard items to navigate to lists of things too, or to specific items within the map. So I can click on these and go directly to the results. So that's when you first log in. Again, it's just big picture stuff to help get you oriented with where you are. If you want to start diving into the data that's in your account, you can go to views if you'd like. And views is really just spreadsheet views of all the data that's inside your account. We give you plenty of spreadsheets to start with. For example, here's a list of all properties broken into interest types. So I've got it broken into easement and fee simple. These are can be filtered live by just clicking that filter button and clicking these checkboxes. They can be sorted. They function, if you're familiar at all with Excel, they function a lot like Excel. They're built to be really flexible and to make it so that you can reach in and create the list that you want to see. So for example, if as stewardship staff, I want to see all of the outstanding issues, I can pull that list of all issues. I can change the severity to maybe needing staff follow-up and violation. Let me see, I'm not sure why that didn't filter. And I could also filter based on text here and just search for the name of the issue as well, and sort by date. And then when I was done creating this view, if I didn't want to make it all over again next time, if this was something I looked at a lot, I could just click this save button, give it a name, and then it would show up in my list of views. You can see I've made a bunch of different ones of information that I want to pull out. So that's a really handy, again, sort of big picture way of looking at your data, but views allow you to slice and dice it and pull up whatever you need. And it all has to do, again, so I'm at the office, I'm starting to do my homework on, before my site visit, I want to go look at outstanding issues and make sure there's nothing happening where I am going to be going. So I'm going to head back over to the dashboard, and then from the search bar, I'm actually going to navigate into the property that I'm going to be monitoring today, so I can review the record, review the background on the property, and make sure that I'm prepared for my visit. So you can see when I type into the search bar up here, it shows a few different results. It's going to show me results in the properties, in this thing called stewardship sites, and then it's going to search the contact list as well. If I had a project, which is a different thing you can do in landscape, it would show the Plainfield project as well. So it's searching all of those different lists and showing me the different results. I'm just going to go to the Plainfield property result first. So here we are inside of a property record. Just now when I searched for Plainfield property, you saw that it came up with a property result and a stewardship site result. And so those are the two sort of main units that landscape uses to collect data on the things that probably you're used to thinking of as one thing, just a property. But this property record, the landscape property record, is intended to be a record of your organization's interest in a piece of land that you hold or are hoping to hold. So this would be the record for an active project as well. But it's also the record for a current holding. Up here, there's status. And here's where it's broken into active for active projects, inactive is if it's sort of gone dormant, current holding, partner holding, and disposed. You can also give it an interest, fee simple easement. This list is totally customizable. A lot of the drop-down lists I'm going to be showing you today, you can add categories to, you can customize the drop-down list. So this list of interests is customizable. In this case, it says fee simple. To make it less confusing, I'm actually going to turn it into an easement because I'm going to pretend like I'm monitoring an easement today. Further down, we have all sort of the technical details, again, of your organization's interest in this property. So there's a description, when the project was started, when it was acquired, recording information, donated value, appraised value over here. You can give it categories, which is just giving it tags, again, allowing you to, maybe if you were making a view of all your working farms, it would be really, really easy using these categories to do so. Acquired acres, acquisition method, all of these are details associated with the interest. Further down, there's parcel details, which is going to hold location information pertaining to the property. You can see acreage, project area, again, customizable, state, county, jurisdiction. PLSS doesn't apply out here, but it is in there if you need it. And then some directions and narrative description. Again, all pertaining to where it is in space. Then we get to active contacts. So most properties or most databases, excuse me, that you're familiar with, you probably have one field and it says landowner, and then another field and it says grantor. And you type in the landowner name, you type in the grantor name. Maybe it has a co-holder field that's empty most of the time. Landscape handles things in a slightly different way where you enter a contact and then you give that contact a tag, like landowner or like co-holder. These contacts can have as many tags as you want, and you can use them to place these contacts into different categories. For instance, this guy, Craig Johns, could be both the landowner and the grantor. In this case, they're two separate individuals. Also, you'll notice that down here we have inactive contacts. So landscape gives you the ability to, if a property is sold, for instance, or transferred for some other reason, you can give the contacts an end date, and giving them an end date will put them into that inactive contacts list so that you retain the information of that landowner having, or of that grantor, and of that grantor's relationship to the parcel but they're now in a different category of inactive, and you can choose to exclude them from certain lists if you want to. It's a really handy way of being able to capture the historic information for your properties, and it's very, very clear. I'm a really big fan. Further down, there are conservation values. This has to do probably more with the acquisition side, stuff that your organization is interested in capturing how much you've protected, for example, river frontage, farmland acreage, stuff like that. Capital funding, there's a capture everything else notes field down here, as well as communications. One of the really cool things about how communications happen, and something that I want to know if I'm heading out to the field, is, has anyone in our organization interacted with anyone from this property recently? Because I don't want to show up to the property and be told that, oh, I talked with someone last week about donating your property. Why don't you know about that? Or donating my property, which that's happened to me before. The way communications are handled is as long as someone is listed as an active contact on any property. So if Craig is listed on as an active contact for a different property, the communication that you're logging with them, for example, this email about a visit or a summary, that will show up down here in communications, regardless of whether the communication had to do with this property or with a totally different property. It's a really, really neat way that Landscape makes sure that you don't miss important communications. This one, for example, is showing us a lot of communications with Leafy Greens Land Trust, which is a made-up land trust, but that we fictionally hold some different easements with. If I press this filter button, it will filter out all of the communications that are not associated with this particular property. To get it to show up again, I just click that filter button. So again, that's a really great way of, when I'm doing my homework, I can look at those communications, make sure no one's had any communications with the people before I go out to the field. Finally, the last bit of homework I would do would probably be to look at the BDR and the easement, as well as past site visits. For those first two, those would live in what we call property assets. Property assets are sort of where you capture all of the details of all the specific pieces that went into you protecting the property. For instance, appraisals, approvals, the baseline reports that you did, any site visits that were performed, as well as surveys and stuff like that. And if I just go into one of these assets, you can see that an appraisal asset, for instance, has fields that are specific to appraisals. Also, you can track expenses, where the funding came from for that appraisal. And if you wanted to attach the appraisal as a document, you could attach it right there. Anything that's doesn't have a category, you can attach as a general or just as a property asset. For instance, that's where conservation easements end up going. As you start attaching documents, you don't have to dive into each one to fetch the documents. All the documents are going to start appearing here on the right, and you can just click on them to view them. So here's where I could go to review the documents, but so now I'm sort of done reviewing the technical details of some of the background of the property, and I want to know what the stewardship history is of this property. And for that, that's what Landscape calls a stewardship site. That's where all the activities that happen on the property after it's protected go. This is where all the records of site visits, all the records of issues, structures and uses, leases, all that good stuff gets tracked on the stewardship site. And the reason we break it into two different things is that, as I'm sure you're all aware, properties and what we think of as properties in land conservation, they tend to want to be flexible the way we treat them. For example, if you or your organization protects a neighboring fee property, over here, and maybe this is a fee property right here, you want to start treating the two of those as the same preserve. You don't want to have to enter records in two different places. So a stewardship site enables you to combine multiple properties into one unit that can then be managed as a whole. Similarly, a lot of the time, sometimes, hopefully not too often, these easements can get subdivided, and you want to manage each easement as a separate unit, but you want to retain the details pertaining to that original property record, and you don't want to have to now duplicate the information to every subdivided easement that you're creating. So a stewardship site can also be one parcel that's a part of a larger property. So in that way, you're not duplicating information, and it's a really smooth way of managing how these properties behave after they're protected. So that's where we are now. This is a stewardship site. You can see up here, there are stewardship site details pertaining specifically to stewardship on the property. There are access instructions that are going to help me navigate to the property, find out where to park. That's always a pain if I haven't been there before. There are specific categories. In this case, I have it categorized as insured by terra firma, it's co-held easement, and the baseline has been signed. Those are things that I chose to track. You can choose to track completely different things. The property parcel details are inherited specifically from the property. It is the same data. So if I edit this, it's going to edit that property record that we were just in. If this was made up of multiple parcels, I'd be able to see and edit those parcel details as well. Here's the active contacts. This is just inheriting that from the property record that I looked at before. Down here, there are notes and communications. There's also this obligations field, which is going to give you sort of a 1,000 or 40,000 foot view on what your obligations are pertaining to every stewardship site that you hold. By default, each stewardship site is given the annual monitoring obligation, just because we assume that most organizations are monitoring their properties once a year. You can delete this default obligation if you want, but you can also create a new obligation if you want to be able to track, maybe this gets a special kind of report and you want to make sure that that gets done once a year. Maybe there is biological inventory that you need to be doing every 6 months. You can change the frequency based on what you want to track. And you can say when it was completed. You can also change the start date and stuff like that. So this is totally customizable. But this isn't where the monitoring actually happens. This is just a way of tracking, again, at sort of a high level, what's been done and what hasn't been done. Also, I'm sure a lot of you have noticed there's this map component for both properties and stewardship sites. And the mapping component changes based on the context that you are in the site. For example, you can see when I'm in the property record, it's just showing me property-specific technical details. This is a building envelope that I have entered that's been surveyed on the ground. So I think that that really lives well with the property record. In a stewardship site, however, I want to be able to see maybe past site visits. So this is actually showing me all my past site visit tracks. It's got photos that I can see directly from here. And it's also got a trail that I have mapped here. And all of this stuff, it's pulling all of this from actual records in landscape, which is really, really neat. And you can see how many different things are mappable in landscape, how many different things you can give context to. And that's a real strength of the software, just having this to look at all the time and be fully interactive. So I'm going to skip over the work tab and just zoom through really quickly. Here's where if I wanted to be aware of any outstanding issues on the property, I could look at issues. Issues are where you can track maybe not what you're, maybe not like a technical violation, although you can track violations here, but you can also track like pending property transfers. You can track third-party encroachments. You can track invasive species. And these things can also all be mapped. So this is a barberry patch, for instance, that I have mapped that I just want people to be aware of. So maybe that they just know, we know about the barberry patch. You don't have to photograph it every time you go out on a visit, but you can if you want. Down here also are rights and approvals. So when I go out to monitor, I want to be aware what rights does this landowner have. And landscape gives you the ability to enter the outstanding rights. So ones that the landowner is just sitting on and hasn't exercised yet. In this case, it's a right to build a barn. And I can enter the exercise requirement. In this case, it's nothing because they have it as of right. But you can also track the activities that go along with that right and approval within that record as well. So that's really, really handy. Next here on the use tab, you can track if they build that barn, you can enter it here as a barn that goes towards a maximum area. If they have like a 40,000 maybe square footage requirement, you can set the max area, but you can also use it to track trails on your properties. That can be particularly useful if you're tracking fee stuff. But in this way, now I know that there's a trail system on the property, and I can use it to navigate if I'd like. So here's the trail system. And I now know that, oh, I can go out and maybe walk that trail. That'll make my monitoring a little bit easier. Finally, over here, just like on the property record, I have access to all of the documents that are nested within all of those records where we just were, including the site visits, which I'll get to in just a moment. But if I want to, I can click on any of those images and bring them up. This is just accumulating all of those different records. And if I want to, I can use this to search up here. Okay. So that brings us finally to the monitoring portion of landscape. This is really where anytime you do any kind of site visit, not only annual monitoring, but also baseline visit, maybe work parties, probably more common for fee program or property. But anytime you visit the stewardship site, you can create a site visit using the mobile app. You can take photos, you can take a track, and then upload it seamlessly to landscape, and it will get recorded here. Site visits can have different types. In this case, the type is annual monitoring. They can also have their own customizable forms. So every organization is different in what they want to be able to gather when they're on a visit, right? We see some forms that are 50 questions long. We see some forms that are 2 questions long. But the point is that you can make this form be whatever you want it to be and ask whatever questions you want it to ask, and then pull it into the final PDF report. So in this case, I want to ask, does a landowner intend to exercise any reserved rights? What are the current uses of the property? It's a really simple, straightforward form. And I can put this form, I can design it in the settings of landscape, and I can populate every easement stewardship site with the same form, so that whenever someone creates a new monitoring visit or site visit with the type of annual monitoring, it will bring up this form inside that site visit. So then they can just fill out that form whenever they're doing a monitoring visit. In addition, you can make your own form, or you can customize the forms per property. If there are specific questions that you want to make sure get answered on specific properties. It's a very flexible system, and also but also very replicable. So you're doing the same process every year. Site visits allow you to track personnel. If I'm using the monitoring app, it's going to automatically enter who was there doing the site visit. It allows you to track their role. It will automatically calculate hours, and I'll show you how it does that. And you can also track costs and expenses. One cool feature I just want to point out is that one of the potential workflows to make your life a little bit easier is if you create the site visit beforehand, you can have a report type that is a landowner letter. And what I just did was merge information from the property record, from the stewardship site, from the site visit into a letter saying, hey, we'd like to come to your property. Let us know if there's anything we need to know. And since I gave it a date, it's going to tell them when I'm going to arrive on the property. So creating this template was super easy, and I get to apply it whenever I want, and I don't have to write out that letter every time I want to go out on a site visit. It's super slick. That brings us to, finally, the landscape mobile app. What I just did, part of my homework, looking at all the different site visits, seeing where everybody went, all of this information was collected with the landscape mobile app. Doesn't have to be. You can import this geodata very, very easily by just, well, within a site visit. You can import geography very easily by just clicking that. You can import geotag photos, you can import tracks and stuff like that. But if you do use the landscape mobile app, it does keep it simple. And so right now I'm just looking at all the different tracks that were gathered with the landscape mobile app. The landscape mobile app looks like this. The domain of the mobile app, again, is this work tab, and specifically this site visits tab. Everything I just showed you pertaining to a site visit can be done with the mobile app. It's really intended to make it very easy for you to go out, gather the data that you need, and upload it to the website. The monitoring app works on iOS devices and Android devices and can be used totally offline as long as you download the site visit beforehand, which is really, really useful to stewardship staff if they don't know how good the reception is going to be. Or you could also have a device without a data plan, although do be careful if you have a device without a data plan. They often don't have GPS chips if they're intended to just not have data plans. But again, they work on Android devices, iOS devices. You can download this monitoring app. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that it's ready for me to do my offline visit. So I'm just going to download everything I need. This is going to download not only the map for the visit, so I'm ready to go navigate offline, but also it's going to download all the documents that I asked it to download. I didn't show you how to do that workflow, but you can select documents like the easement, like the baseline documentation report, to make available to the app so that when you click on that Documents tab, you can see, you can have access to those really important documents. Personally, I never really liked making calls in the field about whether something was a violation, so I sort of hesitated to have the easement on hand. It sort of made me nervous, but if it's something that you want to do, if you find it really useful, you can absolutely have that easement document available as a PDF in the field, as well as BDRs and past site visit reports. The app will automatically download the past 3 site visits. So when I open up one of these site visits, let me see if my mouse is going to work here. It's going to actually open up the site visit as data. So I can open this location map to show where the individual walked on that visit. I can click on these photos to show what was photographed. it's all very useful if I'm in the field and if I want to plan. If maybe it's a big property, I don't want to do something that someone did last year. It's going to download that information automatically and have it ready for me. It's really, really convenient, super slick. Another thing you have access to, of course, is the contact records. You want to be able to call people if you're in the field, or if you're heading out, maybe you're in the neighborhood, you just want to call them, you have a good relationship with them. So, hey, in the neighborhood, you can pull up their number on the app, no problem. But what I want to do today is perform a new site visit. So to do that, I'm just going to click on the site visit. It's asking me what type I'm doing. This is important for associating the correct form. I'm going to say annual monitoring. And this should look really familiar. This is basically that site visit page where we just were. So it's got a type, it's got a status that I'm now going to change to in progress. Automatically updated the start time. I have access to methods. I'm not going to enter the summary yet, but what I am going to do is press this nice play button and say start visit. What that did is it just started gathering my monitoring track. So it's going to start creating this line as I walk around the property, as long as that play button is on. If I want to pause it, take a break, I can press pause. When I press stop, it'll stop gathering a track and update that end date. When I monitored for the trustees and when my favorite way of monitoring, my workflow was to monitor almost completely from the map and really just have this open and then gather photos along the way. So I just clicked on that location to bring up the map. If I want to, because it's all integrated together, I can turn on different layers. For example, I can turn on different monitoring routes. I can turn on different issue geographies. It starts getting busy pretty quickly, so I like to keep it pared down a little bit. But I do have access to those layers. So now I can walk around the property. The little blue dot is me. I can navigate using the app. And I'm really just going to keep the map open the whole time. When I see something that I want to record, I'm going to click on this camera button. And it's going to open up the camera app on my phone. And you can see I can move it around. It's fall here in Massachusetts. It's really nice. You can see the GPS accuracy is recorded in the lower left. That's just the GPS accuracy of your device, not of the landscape app. And then it's also recording the heading. I can click on that button to take a picture, give it a quick description, choose to keep it, close that, and we're back to the map, and I can keep monitoring. And then I just repeat that workflow. If I want, or if you want to, you can also draw geography. Maybe there's an area that you want to denote. You can click on that area icon, draw an area, save it, and now you have a new area to edit. And it looks like that layer is behind some other layers, so I could access it, but it would take me going into the options. So, just before I forget, there's this info button up here that's showing me that direction information from the stewardship site, if you remember, telling me where to park, where exactly the property is, how big it is, stuff like that. So I walk around, I take pictures, I take a track, and then if I want to, maybe I can enter some information and summaries along the way. But my favorite thing to do is when I get back to my car, press stop, you can see it updated the time automatically. It stopped taking that track. When I get back to my car, that's when I personally like filling out the form, just because I have the time to sort of think about the responses and take my time writing up the summary. But really, once I'm done filling out this form, I'm nearly done with the entire monitoring report process. There's just one more step. One of the cool features, and this was something suggested by a user that we were really excited to implement. You can actually see previous form responses if you click on that time button. Just an easy way to, again, review past items. Filling in the form entries is really easy. Some of them are single choice, some of them are multiple choice, and you can enter text as well. And that's really it for the monitoring process. It's really pretty straightforward, but it gives you access to all of the things that you probably want to have access to in the field. We tried to make it simple to accommodate volunteer organizations who don't have a lot of time for training, but we also tried to keep it comprehensive so that stewardship staff could gather all of the data that they really need in the field. The final thing that you can do while on a site visit, I pointed out that you can track issues in landscape. If you see something that is an issue, you can enter it from this site visit. So that'll create a new issue. You can see it's also showing me the existing issues. So maybe I can not log the same issue over and over again, but I can just update the existing issue. It's just an additional feature that we have built into the app because folks were really wanting to be able to do that in the field. So that's really it for the mobile app function. Really pretty simple. There are a few other things where you can change your base map, and there are different ways of obviously. You don't have to use it for monitoring. You can use it for current conditions report, right? If you're doing a baseline report, you just go in, you can go out, take all the photos with the app, and then upload them into a report. And so I'll show you what that looks like right now. So back at the office, I am going to synchronize the app with the website by clicking on that icon. Sorry, I should use the mouse by clicking on that icon. Say yes. And so what that's going to do, that's going to synchronize it with the website. And if I talk long enough, then Landscape will upload the visit information. Yep, there it is. And I can go in and see the photograph that was taken. Not much of a track was gathered because I was sitting in this chair. But if I had walked around, I could see that. I could see the area that I collected, as well as the form responses that I entered. And final step, maybe now that I'm sitting at a desk, I can spend a little bit more time typing up a summary. It's a little bit easier with the keyboard in front of me. Maybe that's how I choose to finalize some of this data. But if you'll remember how I generated that landowner letter with report, it's the same exact process for generating a landscape report. So you click on that report button and click on the annual monitoring visit. And it's going to pull in information from all over landscape. It's going to pull in property data. It's going to pull in landowner data. So I don't have to spend time entering the stuff that I already know, right? It just merges all that data into one report that is completely customizable. It's going to bring in my form responses, show me my start and end time, give me a signature field, which I can sign and use to, I can also send this to a supervisor if I want to, using this if they need to sign it. We just built that feature out. Again, from customer requests, we're really excited. That came out last week, I think. So you can send it to another staff member to review. Here's the photo. You can see I didn't have to enter in any of this lat long data, image direction, anything like that. Here's the map, automatically appears. And then I can click on PDF, add PDF to documents list, and that's going to save this final PDF into that site visit report. And I'm done. That's the whole monitoring visit from start to finish. And I think probably right now you're feeling like that was a fire hose of information. Hopefully you're not too overwhelmed. If I go back to the site visit, you'll see that document right here. And we are pretty much done. We've got about 15 minutes left for questions. We like to leave plenty of time. Does anyone have any questions on the stewardship workflow or anything else that I touched on today? Nothing?
Hi there.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a really bad connection. Thank you for the presentation. It was very good. It was very useful, a lot more than me just going through the trial mode.
Yeah.
So we are really thinking about this app, and I have some questions. And one is, you showed a table with a summary with the properties and titles and different things. Is that table, can I export it?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, is this what you mean, the views? Something like this? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's very easy. You can just collect or select the records that you want, click export. You can export to a CSV, or you can use it to export to those reports, right? So if you want to run a report for multiple things at once, like a property acquisition summary, you can do that. So yeah, it's really, really easy.
Oh, that's great. And another thing for the, where you do the reports and the different like parts, and you can change and modify it and make it as you need it for your report. Is that for all the, how do you say, headings? Because we work in Chile and we need it to be in Spanish. So that's kind of an issue. So
these right here, like these different categories. So Caleb, actually, that's a really good question for developer.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to answer it. So there's no Spanish version of landscape right now. However, all of the text that, so Michael, if you go into one of those report templates, just as an example, all of that text, certainly you can make that Spanish, and it would work just fine. So you're basically telling it what text you want in those reports. And as long as you are also typing Spanish into the various fields that get merged into that template, then everything should be in Spanish. The only thing that won't be in Spanish then are, you know, all of the stuff that the application is displaying there, like where it says properties or it says site visits. Unfortunately, right now, that's all going to be in English. But if all of your data entry is done in Spanish, then all of your reports should also be in Spanish.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything in the chat? I forgot to open the chat. No? A lot of folks are curious about storage requirements, and they're worried that maybe if they take too many photos, it will fill up their account storage. Landscape has a 100 gigabyte limit, and we have yet to have an organization out of over 100 organizations run into that limit.
Well, it's not a limit. It's
Oh,
what
yeah,
comes
sorry.
with the subscription. There's
Yeah.
actually no limit. If you,
Correct.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can purchase blocks of 100 gigabytes of storage if you need it. But like Michael said, nobody yet has needed it.
Yeah.
I'll just do a unsolicited testimonial.
Great.
That I've been using Landscape for about a little over half a year, and just both Caleb and Mike have been really responsive as I've sent them numerous emails. And yeah, I've been really pleased with how it works, and my volunteers, many of my land stewards or volunteers have been very pleased. I think it helped that we used Esri's survey 1, 2, 3 previously, and this is
okay.
much easier.
Oh, good.
Great.
Good.
So I kind of threw the worst at them, and they're all like, wow, this is really good. This is easy.
Good. Good.
Great to hear it.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Any other questions? Caleb, can you think of anything that I forgot to cover?
No, I think that was fairly comprehensive.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I'll just reiterate, today we talked about stewardship. Landscape is equally built out on the project management side. So we talked about monitoring today, but in terms of project tracking abilities, Caleb could give an equally in-depth tutorial or demo on the project side of Landscape. So it's not just about stewardship. It's really about your entire program and being able to track whatever you need to track. So just, yeah, be aware that the app is awesome for this workflow, but it's just a part of the whole Landscape thing.
And if you want to see more about that, you could join tomorrow's demo at 12:15 Central Time, I think, for the next one. That will be more of a general overview of Landscape.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Well, I guess if there's nothing else,
great. Yeah,
we
last
can end early.
Anyone? It's been quiet this year at Rally. Quiet on the questions. That's fine. Feel free to send us any questions if you think of anything later. And thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And hope to see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.